For those that don't know me, I'm Robin Bennett, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Dog Gurus. And I'm going to throw it over to Susan, who's our other co-founder, who's also going to introduce our special guest and kick it off today for our topic on fearful dogs.
Yeah, hi, I'm glad to be with you guys. And if you're used to seeing me in my office, I'm not. I have remodeling going on, like I think half of everyone else in the country. So the next couple months is going to be like, where's Susan on our Facebook Lives? I don't know where my office is going to be. Changes every day. And that can be good. Change can be good, even though it's a little scary. So I am so excited that Debbie Oliver with Miss Daisy's Canine Activity Center is joining us today because Debbie and I, as you guys know, we have sibling pets, little Chihuahua mixes here on National Chihuahua Day. And they have taught.
Totally was not planned, but is very fun.
But it's perfect. Perfect.
It is, because I have learned a lot from this little dog, JJ, about fearful dogs and stuff. And I've talked to Debbie a lot and know she is really good and creative in helping dogs that are fearful acclimate to her business and other things. So we're super excited about our topic here today. So let's get started. We know that there's like fear periods for puppies and socialization, and that focusing on socialization while they're puppy during these stages can help, but they don't necessarily resolve all fears. And Debbie, I know you get called a lot and have a lot of success. So how do you really get down to determining that fear is the issue the dog and family needs to work with?
First of all, what I think we also need to know is, yeah, there are fear periods. And a lot of things can cause it at the breeder. What do we do with them once we get them home? But also a lot that's involved is nature, which is what happened to Susan's and my dog, because I had them from the time they were a day old. And they have a fear of people. What we want to make sure of is when we're talking to customers that have dogs that have a little bit of fear, we want to make sure that we don't make them feel bad, that it was something that they did. It may not be anything that they did. It may just be the dog. And it doesn't really matter why they're a little bit fearful. We have the dog that we're working on, and what can we do to help them? And thank you for having me on for this subject, because I'm passionate about this. So I also want to clarify that we're not talking about dogs that are so fearful that they won't even come up to a person and you can't get them in the door and they sit in the corner and they shiver the whole time. That's a whole nother level of fear that probably does need to be seen by a behaviorist or a certified vet or something. This is, and we've all seen them when we've done this for very long, the dog that's a little bit not sure, that kind of doesn't interact at all with the other dogs. What can we do to make those dogs feel more comfortable? So in the daycare boarding setup, there's different levels of fear or different things that they can be afraid of. They can be afraid of being in a new environment. They can be a little bit afraid of new people. They can be afraid of what's going to happen when mom or dad leave me. They can be afraid of other dogs. So I try to, as much as I can, never force any one of those steps. So for example, when the owner gets here with their dog, I don't go up to the dog. I let the dog come up to me. It's all about choice. I am not going to force myself or anything on that dog. But it's unusual for a dog that's not super fearful of people to not come up to you if you go, your high squeaky voice, that God gave me a great high squeaky voice. And so that's the first level. Do they come up to me willingly? Even if the owner isn't up with me, do they come up to me willingly? Do they walk into my facility willingly? I don't want to drag them in. I don't want to use treats to get them in. I want it to be their choice to, yes, I think I want to go in here. Now, we've all seen the dogs too that come rushing right up to you, run into the facility, right out to see the other dogs, and are all happy tails and waggy bodies, and as the dog gurus say, the green body. We all know those. You do not have to go through those steps for this. But when a dog is a little bit fearful, you can really give them a lot of power by letting them see they have choice. They don't have to come up to you. They don't have to walk into the facility. Can they walk away from mom? but they don't have to. If we force them to do things, that's going to make it's possible that it can make them more and more fearful. Now, I know you're all saying, I've had lots of dogs that walk in my door and they're a little bit afraid. And once they're in and they see the dogs playing for a couple hours, they wander out from wherever they're hiding and they're fine. They can be fine, but it can also go the other way. And if it goes the other, you don't know which way it's going to go till it goes there. And if it goes the other way, then it can be a lot harder to change. And you may never get that dog loving your facility because they didn't have a choice. They couldn't opt out when they wanted to. So I'm going to talk about a lot today on how you let them choose to make the next step and how you can recognize that. And it doesn't need a trainer to know this. We all know dogs. We all know the green body language and the yellow and the red, hopefully, that you guys teach so well. So one of the things that I've changed over the years, and I've done this for like too long, but I used to, which I think a lot of people do, is bring a tester dog into the new dog. The dog made the decision to go into that room with or without mom, however you do it, but they made the decision to go into that room and they didn't see another dog there. Would they have still made that decision if they knew that there was a dog in that room? So I have changed that and I do it a little bit different. And again, this is with my shy dogs, not with the dogs that just, they're fine being there. So the way that and I'm gonna have to move this camera around a little bit, but the way that I do this is I develop a little bit of a relationship with not just the dog, but with the owner. This is a perfect opportunity to start building a relationship with that owner, to start building the loyalty, which is what we all want from our customers, to make them realize, what are you looking at? Why do you not want to just drag them into the room, even though the owner may be saying, oh, they'll be fine, they'll be fine. You don't have to agree with everything they say. You're the one that's experienced in this business. Why do you not want to make them do it? So you spend a little bit of time talking, or I do, talking to the owner while I'm building a relationship with the dog. The next thing I do is this is a little room that I use for, let's just chill out, guys. We don't always have to see other dogs and play. Can we just be laying next to one another? Or it's a room that I use for making big dogs feel comfortable with little dogs and little dogs feeling comfortable with big dogs. So it's fairly small. And a lot of you might think, if the dog is fearful, you need to have them in a big space. That's what I thought too 25 years ago. I thought, we've got this great big play acre. They can go and they can get as far away as they want to. But if the dog is a little bit fearful and another dog comes up to sniff them, they might take off because they want to get away from that dog. A dog that likes to play with other dogs, what is the first thing? Yahoo! It's the chase game, my favorite. And we could have ruined that dog's experience right there. So I do not do intros in great big areas anymore because there's too big of a possibility of someone being a little bit afraid and they take off. And now we've really set ourselves back. So I do it in smaller areas. And like you guys always say too, give them places to go behind or go under. I don't even want them to have to make that decision. So let me show you how I do this.
I'm going to hide us. I'm going to hide us, Debbie, so you can have more of the camera.
Okay. Yeah. Before you hide me.
No, I'm going to hide us, not you.
Okay. Before you hide you, can you tell me just tell me for sure that you can see
the crate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was going to say too, for those that were tuning in, talking about the pet parent and the pet parent coming in and the dog making the choice. That was something I actually had to teach my staff. Your staff needs permission not to pet every dog that walks in the door and to let the dog make that choice. And if you don't tell your staff that, they're naturally going to think that every dog that walks in, they need to rush up and greet them. They need to rush up and greet the owner and build a relationship with the owner, but they can give the dog the chance. So I just want to reiterate that because I think that's really important.
And when you're teaching your staff that, sometimes you have to explain to the pet parent, you know what? your dog is so cute. And I would, as much as I would love to go up and pet on them and love on them, I'm not sure they'll feel real comfortable with that. So we're going to wait until I know that's what your dog wants. Because sometimes the pet owners think they don't even like dogs. So sometimes you do have to explain to them why you're not doing that. You're doing that because you really do like their dog and you don't want to rush up to them in case it scares them. Okay. So this is a little room that I've got this set up in, and I bring the dog from the office area, and this is just a little hallway. And it's got an exercise pen stuck out from the hallway. Now, if the dogs are super exuberant and super huge, I'll use bigger exercise pens. But typically, if a dog is a little bit timid, they're not going to be jumping at this exercise pen to get to the other dog that I have inside. So the reason I really like this setup is because they don't even have to look at the dog if they don't want to. These are this is a long hall, and it's got a crate down at the end, which I can't even show you. But if they want to, they can come like they're coming into the room, but the other dog can't get right up to them. So this is a first way that it tells me, yeah, I see there's a dog in there, and I do think I would like to meet that dog. And when a dog is timid, and if you guys want to come back, you can. That's all I'm going to show of that spot. But when a dog is timid, I like to use a dog that I know doesn't really care much about a new dog. Kind of like we don't want to overexert ourselves on a new dog. We don't want the other dogs to go running right up and go, hey, you want to play? Who are you? Let's just let the other dogs kind of sniff in a calmer manner. But I have had dogs with this setup, and there's a crate at that other end of the hallway, go and just sit in the crate and not even come into the exercise pen and not even want to see, even if I only have one dog out here. So that right there tells me, okay, this has got to be a slow introduction, because if I just try to get them in a lot of people have entry little cubicle things. If you just try to force a dog through that little cubicle thing, and even 5 or 6 dogs come up and sniff them right away, we can immediately have a dog going, nope, don't want to do this. It really needs to be their choice. And that's why I love this, because if they don't want to even have to look at the dog, they don't have to look at the dog. There have been some dogs that have stayed in this little entryway for 3 hours. And eventually you might see them come out of the crate a little bit. Eventually, and the reason I like this lower exercise pen is because then if they do want to sniff, they can sniff over the exercise pen if they want to. But sometimes it takes a while. And I think the owners are bringing you their dogs because, and sometimes you have to talk about what their goals are, but because they would like their dog to be able to be in a fun environment like this. And you have to talk to them about, not all dogs love it immediately. So we may have to take it a little bit more slowly with your dog. Even with this one other dog in here, your dog does not want to start to enter that room, even though the other dog can't get in. So sometimes I do leave sometimes the owners are in the office, which they can see through this window behind me. Sometimes not, because sometimes I notice that the dog is more concerned about the owner being in the office than they are about anything else. So I play that part by ear, but I do know that the introduction that you make, that initial introduction, if it is not their choice, can ruin your chances of getting a happy dog and a loyal customer. So
do most of the owners where the dog is really not comfortable and might take 30 minutes or an hour or longer, are most of those owners surprised, or did they expect that?
Some are surprised. Most just think, just put them in there, they'll be fine. I get that a lot. They'll be fine. Just go in there. When we go to the dog park, they just go in, and then after a little bit, they start sniffing around. If they're only sniffing around at a dog park and they're not engaging with the other dogs, they are just trying to live through the experience. I don't want dogs here just trying to live through the experience. I want them to enjoy it here. And if we have to take little steps to get there, And mostly it is people just think, oh, they'll be fine, just put them in there. And
Right.
I have to tell them why I don't want to do that. And if they insist, I don't do it. I am into what is best for the dog. So and in many cases, the owner can then understand why this cannot be just a regular daycare charge. You're having to spend a little bit more time, and maybe they'll only be here for an hour the first time. They need to get the idea of, I come, I'm not forced to do anything. I can take as baby steps as I want to, because my motto through life is the slower you go, the faster you'll get there.
Yeah.
If you try to just toss them in, you may never get there. But even a dog that will love it, you're not going to cause any problems doing it this slow way.
So Debbie, I know you really have worked with a lot of fearful dogs and have a specialty, and I do love your mantra, the slower you go, the faster you'll get there. How do you communicate throughout this process with pet parents to keep them engaged and I guess moving forward? Because I know you told me a story where you worked with a dog for 2 years.
Yeah.
How did you keep that client engaged with you and having hope that you were getting somewhere? What tips can you have with that? Because I think that's where a lot of our members struggle.
I think that for one thing, if I am not seeing a dog come to my facility happily jumping out of the car and happily running into me and leaving their owner after about 3 or 4 visits, then maybe it isn't a good fit. Not that there's anything wrong with the facility. It may just be that particular facility is too large or too many dogs, or for whatever reason. It's great now. When I first started, you didn't have choices for daycare. But it's great now that you can go to so many places where some are doing individual play, others are not. Some don't want to go through all this process with the more timid dog. But if I don't see a pretty big difference within 3 to 4 times, then what I tell the owner is, okay, let's talk about what we've been through these last 3 or 4 times. I think maybe we even need to take a step back further. And I want them to even be more familiar with here by doing training sessions. And again, it doesn't have to be a trainer to do these trainer sessions with them. It's a 30-minute of play with the dog for 15 minutes, let the owner leave. Can you play with the dog for another 15 minutes when the owner's here? And can you maybe bring one other dog in that doesn't care that they're there? So it's a training package, but when you don't have to have a trainer do this, you don't have to charge regular training prices. So it's almost like you're creating a private daycare 2.0 for that client to try to get them moved into the regular facility. Did that answer your question?
Yes, I think that was.
And the one dog that you were asking me about that I had here for 2 years, I always tell people with fearful dogs, the very first thing, in fact, I just had this speech this morning, the very first thing you have to teach your dog is that they can trust you. You are not going to push them. You're not going to put them in a circumstance that they are not comfortable with. Once you develop that relationship with them, then you can take bigger than baby steps. And that's exactly what I did with that dog that was here, is she did start happily jumping out of the car after just 2 visits, but I kept her in a private suite or in my house with the blinds down. She didn't have to really hear anything. She didn't see anything. After quite a few months, I started opening the door and she could come out in her little yard area and watch the other dogs. Used to be whenever she would see another dog here, even 2 yards away, she would run and react at the fence. So we made little baby steps like that. Then she became best friends with Rizzo. It was the shepherd mix. Riz has got some sort of personality to make shy dogs like her. I don't know what it is. So if they start seeing that I can be with one dog, and it was really interesting because that dog would step out to the door of her suite when I opened it, and she would look around to see who was out. And she would only come out into that yard if Rizzo was out there. But then when she got to trust me and know that I was not going to open the door to her suite unless I knew she was safe, she'd come out more and she got where she could be with 4 or 5 other dogs. And it makes me cry every time when I see something like that happen, because you really have improved the quality of life for that fearful dog. So sometimes it does take a long time, but that dog was like 7 or 8 years old. I had another puppy yesterday that the mom had no idea she had a fear of other dogs. And I brought another puppy in and we were about 30 feet away and that dog barked like crazy and ran into the corner. When it is a young puppy like that, you can turn that around pretty quickly, and we did by the end of the class. But when they're older and they've practiced other ways to get scary dogs to leave them alone, it takes longer, and then you also have to talk to owners about realistic expectations. But these things of going slow, I know you're all thinking, well, I can't take time to do that. I really feel like in your process of going slow, and again, it does not have to be a certified trainer, your staff can learn all of these things. You are developing the most loyal customer base, which is what I have. And so I think that in the long run, it pays. And look at the quality of life that you're improving. And you know what? Sometimes when you do it like this, where you just let the dog make choices, it takes less time and less staff. You just watch them, and you can set up a camera there if you want to on a tripod so that you can see, did they come out of the crate when I was gone? And you can share that video with the owners.
Yeah, which is great. So I just want to post this comment that Jamie said about going slow. Advocate for the dog. If we don't, who will? Which I love, because that's exactly what every pet care facility should be doing. And just like you said, if the dog's not showing improvement or not enjoying coming after a few days, then maybe it's not the best thing. And I think that's what every pet care facility needs to be looking at. The other side of the coin, though, is we have some shy dogs that sometimes come to our facilities, and I don't think we give them enough time to even help them. And we can do a lot with these dogs, but it does take a little bit more time, a little bit more patient, a little bit more one-on-one. So that brings me to, somebody had asked, Tala said, how do we charge appropriately for dogs who need this extra time to adjust?
What I did when I had other people doing this introduction type thing for me is I didn't charge my regular training rate. I would have, it was more than my daycare rate, even if they weren't here for the whole day. I think the whole question of how do we know how much to charge has got so much to do with your facility and what other fees you charge in the area. But I didn't charge my full training rate, but I did charge more than a regular daycare. And then people would ask me too, well, can you guarantee me if I go through this three visit thing that it's gonna work? You can never guarantee training. You can't guarantee anything with a living, breathing thing. No, I can't, but I can tell you that I will know your dog a lot better, and I will know things that you can do with them to make them feel more comfortable in their own skin.
Yeah, and as far as just input on pricing, it is all about knowing your cost and knowing how much time a staff person will be spending, and probably estimate based on your experience. And the more you do this, the better you'll get at it. But you want to definitely cover the cost of the staff plus a profit, and just have a thought of what your plan will be. What are you going to do on the first visit, second visit, third visit, and then you'll refine it as you go.
And you may have a plan of what you're going to do on your first visit, second visit, third visit, but it's going to have to be where you change it based on what happened. And you just keep the customer updated. And you could even do something like, let's see how this goes the first time, and then we'll come up with different options for you. Maybe we want to do a 3-package shorter visit thing. Maybe we want to start, and I've done this a lot. I've started with this package of 6 30-minute sessions. And in the 30-minute sessions, I build my relationship with the dog. Once I do that, I have the owner leave. Do I still have that good relationship? If I do, the next time they come, I may start out with the owner for a shorter part of the 30 minutes, and then maybe bring a dog in that's not going to care. So that pack, you could, and I never did it, but thinking about it, you could easily have a shy dog or 2 shy dog packages. You just can't make any promises. But you can guarantee, one of the things you can guarantee is that you're going to know that dog a lot better, and you will be able to help with the owner with things that they can do. Mostly if they have a dog like this, they know they've got a dog like this, if they ever take the dog anywhere. Now, if they don't take the dog anywhere, they may not know it. And then you have to talk to them about, do you care if you can take the dog anywhere and have them have fun? Maybe they don't. Maybe a better option would be to have somebody come into their house. So with any kind of training, you always want to talk about goals, especially after you've gotten that one visit in, just to see how it is.
So I love this analogy when you were talking about guarantees. Jamie's on a roll today. She said, so it's like dating. You put in the time and effort. Maybe you'll get married, maybe not, but you learn something in the process. So that's the same thing. These dogs that are coming in, you can't guarantee anything, but you are going to learn something about the dog, and which will help the owner in the long run as well.
And you will also get an owner that knows that when your facility knows what you're doing, and even if their dog did not work out here, that they will refer people to you, because your interest is in the heart of the dog. And I have that happen a lot.
Yeah. All right. So going slower you go, the faster you'll get there. I do think this is relevant because I do think coming out of COVID that a lot of puppies came into households that weren't able to get out and go places and socialize. Are you getting more calls? Or I know this is your specialty, so you get calls all the time, but are you seeing anything coming out of COVID that is increasing what we're seeing as far as fearful dogs?
I am seeing fearful dogs with the one that I had yesterday, because she thought that they lived in a house with 2 other dogs. She didn't need her dog to go to a regular puppy class because she lived with 2 other dogs. I hear that a lot. And I think more people during the pandemic were not going out to puppy classes. And sometimes I see a totally different puppy in the home as I do when they come here. So I think that, and a lot of places didn't have classes. We did Zoom in the beginning, but Zoom is, no better than them staying in their homes. So quickly I started doing classes outside as much as I could, because there is a huge big difference between a dog or a puppy being in their own home and then out and about. Huge big. The other thing that I'm seeing a ton of, and I have 2 of them here right now, is because of the pandemic, they're not used to being left alone. They're not used to going in their crate anymore. They're not used to being confined. And now all of a sudden, it was like yesterday we had to wear masks everywhere. And today all of a sudden, no, you don't have to wear masks anymore. Okay, going back to work. You that I was now with you all day long and now I'm not going to be. That's a huge adjustment. Yeah. So I have 2 of those here right now. In fact, one of them was going to stay here for longer than I think they should have. And the lady is going to pick her up tonight because we've got to do it slower. When the dog is that stressed out, there's no amount of learning that's going to take place. So you can't have a dog be stressed at your facility and expect them to learn anything. Just like when I'm stressed, I'm not going to learn anything. You can ask me 2 + 2. I don't know. I'm too stressed out to tell you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we're seeing a lot of dogs that are fearful, and the owner, or they have anxiety from being alone, and the owners have no idea, because that, like you said, that dog in the home seems perfectly fine. And sometimes those owners will go out or decide they want to come to daycare or take them for a walk now that things are opening up, and all of a sudden they're seeing a totally different dog. They have no idea. So I think pet care facilities need to be prepared for that, and need to be, and Susan and I talked about this on another Facebook Live, if you're not doing reassessments of even dogs that you had pre-COVID that maybe you haven't seen in a while, you need to start scheduling those and charging for those, and having pet parents bring their dogs off for small, short trial days before they go out of town or before they drop their dog off for an entire day, because you may see totally different behaviors now after a dog's been home with its family for 24/7 for almost a year. And especially the dogs that came to the home during COVID. So definitely.
No, absolutely. And I'm seeing more, well, and I just did another one of these this morning, that the people thought they were coming in because they had a bad problem with their dog barking at other dogs on a walk. They had an even worse problem of if the dog is more than 15 or 20 feet away from the owners, the dog would lose it, dog or no dog. It was harder for that dog to be 15 or 20 feet away from its owner than it was to see another dog. That was a problem they didn't even think they had. And that was obvious in the beginning. So I think we're going to see more of this. I'm getting a lot more aggression cases. Unfortunately, I think that's just something we're going to have to, and the main thing is, don't make the owner feel like it was something that they did. We were all stressed out. We were all trying to do the best that we could. Don't make them feel guilty that now on top of everything else, I've wrecked my puppy. That's not a good, it's just not good. I often think about, oh my God, I'm a trainer and I have a dog that's scared of, I can do a list real long. It's not my fault. I did the best that I could, which is what every pet owner is doing. They're doing the best that they can. So mostly don't make them feel guilty. Of course, they're going to be like this if you never left them. We were all doing the best that we could. So don't put it all on them.
And just to reiterate, this is revenue that you can charge for, and it doesn't have to be a certified trainer with the kind of light fear behaviors that we've been talking about as far as coming to your facility or seeing other dogs. It is a program and stuff that you can work out. So speaking of Riz and other fears,
Doing right now?
Of course we do. She's in her bag.
She's in her little bag.
She's in her safe place.
She's bagging. There were dump trucks out there this morning, which is the world is coming to an end noise. So, and with a fearful dog too, I do give her, you get to opt out of things. If you don't want to come out of your bag, I'm not going to force you. So I try to practice what I preach.
Do a great job. So I know you've come up with a game with Riz on some of the husbandry stuff. Like you do let her go in her bag, but I know she doesn't like nail trims and not real well, she doesn't like a collar at all, and the harness, putting on her harness can be problematic. So you want to explain how you've created like husbandry games, and it's something that we think could be recurring revenue for facilities?
Yes. And what I did was I'm going to move something around here. To see, so that you guys can see.
Oh, she's interested. I think she knows this game.
It used to be, where am I? It used to be, if she has feathers in the back of her, and if she gets one pine needle stuck to those feathers, you would think the world is coming to an end. On the other hand, her brother can carry around a whole stick and not care. So they're a little bit different. But before I started this game, whenever I would hold up a comb, she would go, oh my God, she's gonna brush the back of me. It's gonna be horrible. So we all have these stories about you hold eardrops up or you hold a nail trimmer up and they see the thing and they run off. So there's a lot of, in the training industry right now, a lot of talk about start buttons and how to let your dogs tell you that they're ready to have something done. There's a lot of different versions of it. This I found to work the best and be the easiest to explain to my customers. So instead of when she sees this comb running off, I have told her, okay, this is what I'm doing to you. You need to let me know if you're ready to have this done or not. And hold on.
All right. And
so she's not running off, which is good, but I'm going to put this on the floor. She nose touches it. Yes. I throw a cookie back, which says she is ready to play this game that's going to involve this horrible comb. Then I move the comb up to where, yes, where I can comb her without getting on the floor. You'll want this different for every dog. But again, the comb is here. She's not running off. If she jumps up there again, she's saying, I know there is a possibility this time that you may pick up this comb and comb me. And I am willing to let you do that. But yeah, I'm always throwing the treat away so that she makes the decision to come back and opt into this game again. And all of our owners have said, yeah, they had an ear infection and now whenever the ear drops, they run away from me. The first thing you've got to do, and it's really easy, is to teach them that appearance of that thing means something good instead of something awful. And they can tell you, you know what, I don't feel like playing that game right at this very second. Just like I hate the dentist, but when I go to the dentist, they tell me if it gets too bad, just raise your hand. I can handle that a lot easier because I know there's a way I can opt out of it if it's hurting too badly. So this is just a way for her to say, yes, I can play this game. Can you have that done again? And just now, and we'll see, if she doesn't want to jump back up there, she doesn't have to. Here's the phone. And sometimes she does this. And right before our little meeting here, there was a pine needle in her, and I combed her, and she thought it was the worst thing ever. But if I have that comb and I go to pick her up, she'll run away from me. So this is just a way for her to say, yeah, ready to have that done. And you can, we were talking, or the dog groomers were talking about recurring revenue last week. You can get this game started at least to the point that when they pick up the thing that they used to run away from, they no longer run away from it and they come towards you. You can do that super easily. Again, it can't be part of your regular daycare day, but it doesn't need to be a full training rate. And depending on how bad the emotional response was to the thing, you can easily get them nose touching that thing by the time the owner comes to pick up. Or you can videotape it and you can say, okay, this is what you need to do between now and when you bring them back. And then you let me know how it's going and then we'll take it to the next step. But I much rather see her do this, even if it's on the floor, than when she sees it, goes and runs off. She does that with her harness too. And so now I've gotten where I lay her harness down. If she nose touches it, she's telling me I'm ready to have it put on. So you can easily do this as another kind of recurring revenue. And I would have paid to have her not run away from me when I picked up these items. You guys can come back.
All right. And so what other items? You talked about the comb, the harness. Have you done it with nail clippers?
The nail trimmer. We can do a nail trimmer. She hardly, just yesterday, she got a little bit better on this. She has a problem with her nails because one time I was clipping with a scissors and I clipped her tongue because she was licking her paw. She will not forget that for the rest of her life. So I have a lot more trouble with the nail clippers than I do the comb. But she knows what this is for. I'm going to lay it down. Yes. And because this is so hard for her, I'm going to leave it on the floor a couple of times and just see if I can move it to the, yes. See if I can move it to the chair, because once it's on the chair and she jumps up on the chair, she knows that there is a chance I might cut a nail. And it takes her a whole lot longer to jump up on the chair for this, if at all, than it does the comb. Let's just see what she does. Right now, she looks awfully tired because her brother has been here and they've been playing for a few days. You see where this is? You don't have to get up there. Yes. Now, next time she jumps up, I'm going to pick up the clippers because then she really knows there's a chance I might do it. And I'm not sure she's going to. But right now, if I went to grab her, she'd be gone. Yes, good girl. So after a few more repetitions of that, I might cut one nail. But now, instead of her going and hiding under the bed or getting in her crate when she sees these things, she tells me, ready to have that done, not ready to have that done. And when the owners can see how much more compliant the dogs are once we give them choices, they really start taking it into their everyday life. And I think it makes a huge difference for the dogs and the dog and owner relationship.
Yeah, it provides that clear communication.
That is correct. That was very good. I didn't think you'd let me go like that.
I love that. I love the fact that the dog has all the choice. And I think that's so critical to explain to the pet parents. And that's what's going to end up ultimately getting the loyalty from those clients.
Absolutely.
Because they know that you're doing everything and giving the dog choices and not forcing anything. And honestly, even if, like you said, even if it doesn't work out for their dog to come to your facility or whatever, you're going to have a lifelong client who knows.
And the other one that I was just thinking of yesterday, that you guys always talk about this, you probably already do it and you just don't charge for it. Now with us learning that it's sometimes better to have a lot of rest time in between plays, some facilities have to crate rest the dogs. If the dog doesn't like crate rest and you just go shoving them in a crate, they may associate that with your facility and go, I know I have some fun there, but it's not worth those few minutes I have to be in a crate. So I think a lot of you already crate condition the dogs, but when you talk to the owners and you can do a write-up about how critically important it is for your dog to stay used to their crate for their whole life, that's another thing that you could charge for every time they came. And once, are you ready to do this? Can you see her? Yeah. Risk. Yes. Can you see the crate? I can't tell.
We see one crate behind the purple climb.
Can you see the bag?
Yes.
Yeah.
Risk. Yes. Okay, bag it. Now this can be a bag, it can be a crate, it can be whatever, but once the owners see that they go in willingly, and again, this does not take very long either, because I had a puppy here yesterday, or I've had her the last 2 days, that the owner was shoving her in the crate and she was screaming the whole time. So I had to start crate conditioning her, and by last night, she was making the choice to go in without the food being visible. At first, I had to throw food in there, but then she would just come out and go right back in. And that happened very quickly. You do not have to be a trainer to do that. And now that the owner sees how the dog is doing and how I got her to do that, she will continue that at home, and then she'll be more comfortable wherever she goes and she has to be in a crate.
Yeah. And I think a lot of these ideas, so I know everyone's looking for ways to generate additional revenue. A lot of these things are services you can offer your clients. And Debbie and I were talking earlier before the Facebook Live about, obviously Debbie's a trainer, I'm a trainer. You don't have to be a trainer to do these things. Your staff pretty quickly can learn how to do some of these behaviors, some of the husbandry skills, and they don't have to be a certified trainer. If you happen to have a trainer on staff, that's even better. It's another way to give them some extra work if they're not full-time or they're not using up all the hours that they might have available, then great. But you don't have to have a trainer. You just need to have somebody that understands a little bit about how to get these things set up. But more than likely, you already know a lot of that, or your staff knows a lot of that. I loved also, Jamie had mentioned for the nail trims. We often have people come in for those nail trims and you do it all in one day and you're done. But if you have a dog that really has issues with it, this is a series of behaviors that you can work on, just like Debbie was showing, that you would charge differently for that, obviously. And Jamie just said, tell them you don't need to do all the nails at once. Maybe you're going to only do one nail every day, and they come in multiple times to get those nails. It's better to do that because long term, that's going to benefit the dog better. And so
the slower you go, the faster you'll get there.
Exactly.
Now, Debbie, you have climbs around, but when you were working with Riz, you didn't use those, you used a chair. Do you want to explain why?
Because Rizzo loves the climbs. Right now, she loves her bag more. But when she sees a climb, she is up on that climb. So it has a really good association with it. I do not want to take a chance. In fact, I did one time. One time, she was up on a climb and I picked her up to put a harness on. It took me 2 days to get her to happily go back on that climb again. So I don't want to take a chance that I'm going to ruin a good association with something that she doesn't like. So if it's a bigger dog, you can do it on the floor, but she has no kind of association with these chairs. I don't care what happens to the chair, but I do not want to wreck my association. Okay, please. Do you not want to get up there? Reese, okay. Okay, please. Good girl. Good girl. I think you do have maybe one brain cell left. But I don't want to take a chance that there's a possibility that she goes, no, I'm not getting up on that climb, because when I do, sometimes my mom picks me up and she does something with me that I don't want done, which is so typical of people that have little dogs. We pick them up and we manhandle them because we can. How many times do little dogs play that you can't catch me game? Because when they're getting picked up, chances are we're trying to do something with them that they did not want done.
Yeah, we take away their choice when you pick them up. I know JJ, if I pick him up, it's just kind of, he's, like this total submission thing, and just, he's a hang dog. Okay, what has to happen? Yeah.
And that's the other thing I tell people with little dogs that might be timid that are coming to my facility. Don't carry them in. I want to see their happy green bodies walking in. When you're holding them, I can't tell a thing.
Yeah.
So try to
the other thing we see here,
because I know sometimes it's easier to just pick them up and move them around, but little dogs get pretty bad raps because a lot of times that's what we do.
when people like being social, and teaching, especially little dogs, to like their bags and stuff, can provide them a safe place when they're going out and learning to be in a new environment. Like, we did have the dogs at a restaurant last week. Debbie and I had both JJ and Riz, and Debbie's, okay, Rizzo's going in her bag. And then she had the choice whether to come out or not.
Yeah, and I think the whole idea of teaching dogs to like getting into something, whether it's the bag the owner has or a crate, if it's a larger dog, and Jamie had put this note in the comment section as well, is our dogs end up needing to be in those things sometimes, whether it's because you drive. My dog always drives in when we're in the car. He's in a crate, so I had to get him used to that when he was very young. But if you go to the vet's office and they have to keep the dog any length of time, they're going to be in an enclosure at the vet's office while they're also sick. So not a great time to be learning that you can be okay in an enclosed environment the first time your dog gets sick and has to stay overnight at the vet. If you have emergency situations, and Jamie used the example of earthquakes in California, but wildfires, earthquakes, whatever, if there's a situation where you have to evacuate, then yeah, hurricanes, whatever, getting your dog used to a crate is a life skill. It's not just a nice to have type of thing, where I feel like people often say, oh, he doesn't need to learn that. And I'm like, actually, he probably should, even if you're not going to use it all the time. It's a great skill to learn. And that's a great additional revenue stream to add if the client hasn't been able to do it, or they don't want to do it, or they just don't have time or patience to do it.
I think the first step of it is what they have the hardest time with. They just don't have the patience to let the dog just walk in on their own and see what happens when they walk in on their own. They just don't have the time or the patience. They pick them up and they shove them in there, and then they shut the door right away. I don't even shut the door for quite a while until they're really running in there and they're fine with it. So I think if you can get that in it, like yesterday, I did that in one day, and the lady's coming to pick up tonight. And when I sent her the video last night, I said, now how different is this from at home? And she said, it's night and day. Bill, they're willing to pay you to get started to do things like that. And it does not, and I'm certainly not saying that a regular trainer should not be certified. I believe in certification. I'm certified. But there are some of these skills that you teach regular pet owners to do that you can certainly easily teach your staff to do.
Exactly. Any last minute things you want to show, or anything that you wanted to do that we didn't give you a chance to do, Debbie?
I don't think so. Oh, the scratch board is another one that you could teach if they really hate their nails done. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the scratch pads. These are easy to teach some dogs and not so easy to teach others, but it takes you about 10 minutes to figure out if it's going to be easy or not. And I actually have not done this with her for a long time. So let me just see. Okay. Let me just see if she will scratch a nail or two on here. Based on what she just did a minute ago, probably not. There we go, good girl. So the first thing you do, the first thing you do is just start out by having them put a paw on it. And there are some dogs, if you put a treat under the sandpaper, that's how I taught her. She just went like this to try to get the treat. So you can tell pretty quickly if your dog is going to be able to do this or not. And then you can say, hey, look what we did today. Do you want us to continue this skill with them? Because this would be a way that you could teach your dogs how to do their nails, and they wouldn't need that. Now they still have to have some done because it doesn't get the dew claws, but she's got a scratch there. It doesn't get the dew claws, and sometimes depending on how they scratch, it does it differently. But it's sometimes a super easy thing to teach, depending on how causey the dog is.
And that's that could be just a normal enrichment activity as
Yes.
well. And then you just turn it into, hey, we did this in enrichment, but we could easily do this continually for whatever price you want to charge for that, and then help the owner get the dog's nails taken care of a little bit.
And there's all sorts of videos on YouTube about how you start this scratch pad, because there's different methods. But again, you'll see right away, if the dog is not very pawsy, it's going to be really hard to teach them.
That's great.
So anything else? Did anybody have any questions about fearful dogs? Because I love to see more fearful dogs develop confidence because they've been given choices.
I think we asked most of them. I'm just going through to look to make sure. But if you have any other questions, just leave them in the comments real quick and we will go through those.
And it is, as Debbie, as you said, seeing the progress of fearful dogs gaining confidence is one of the most rewarding things I think you can do in pet care. Everybody's happier. You are that advocate, and it's extremely rewarding. And right now, you have a big population that you can help and get a little more revenue.